Um, I don't even know what to say.
Welcome back as the goats.
Um, Hi everyone. It's been a very long time and I feel incredibly rusty, but welcome back to, I guess, a new page, new beginning, new season of the W Pod. This feels really weird. Um, this hiatus that was supposed to be a few months turned into like 6 years. So, and a lot has changed. Um, so I'm excited to be recording. And I am joined by two very special people because this episode is a very special episode. So, right now, I'm joined by Lamar Carter and Akiem Bailum, both who are part of the Beyond the W family, because this episode is a celebration episode because we are 10 years in on December 18th, which this will drop on Wednesday, December 18th. Beyond the W will officially be 10 years old.
Let's
Um,
go.
that's crazy, actually, to think about because 10 years flew by. Um, but I wanted to record this episode. I wanted to relaunch the pod for a long time, and I wanted to do something to just commemorate 10 years other than just putting up a social media posting call in a day, right? So I said, you know what? Why not use this opportunity to, you know, put our podcast, our headphones on and put our mics on and just kind of talk about the journey that we all have been during our different tenures here with um, Beyond the W. And I'm so excited. I'm so thrilled. I'm like a host of emotions, um, including nervous because I really feel like I'm just winging it right now. Um, so I have a few questions to start, but this is going to be a very free flowing conversation, just amongst family, amongst friends. So we're just going to just let it flow. And we hope that the conversation that you guys listen to today, you guys will not only enjoy, but learn and take away a little bit of something that you can just apply to your day to day if you want to. Because I'm sure a nugget or two will be dropped because everybody here got a lot of life experience to share. So, um, I will turn it over to you guys and allow you guys to introduce yourselves and what do you do as part of the Beyond the W team?
The king first.
Yeah. My name is Akeem Bailum. I've been with Beyond the W for 8 of those 10 years, and it's so amazing. I mean, like you said, Lo, 10 years goes by really, really, really fast. Like 2014 probably feels like yesterday, and I remember. And I remember even before I joined, all of the interviews that you would conduct and you had on the YouTube, and you was interviewing so many, and that's just the beginning. So I mean, it was it my journey with Beyond the W started in 16, and I had just recently graduated from Georgia State University, and I was, looking, definitely for something to do to kind of, start my foray into, sports media, kind of start getting my feet wet, and I ran across I was doing a Google search one day and I ran across this website Beyond the W where it was, looking for, okay, there was like a writer's wanted thing there. And I applied, and, and the rest is history. I mean, like, I remember some of, what I did in my, older days, I guess you can say. Like, when I first started, like, I know I was rusty. I know I was a bit rusty. Like, it was one of those situations where sometimes I would even, misspell players' names sometimes. But ever since then, I feel like I've improved. I feel like I've gotten better. I feel like I've gotten, to know much more, many more people. I've done so many interviews, put out so much content, and like I said, the rest is history. Like, where is this time gone?
Definitely. And how about you, Lamar?
Listen, time flies when you're having fun, right? Uh, so my name is Lamar Carter, creative coordinator, photographer, whatever is needed for Beyond the W. I guess my time with the crew started what, low 2018. Um,
I remember. I'll tell you though. Continue, but I remember. I
nah,
remember where we met.
yeah, I forget the specifics of the conversation, but I think it was just, hey, you were building this thing. I'm sure I was waxing poetic about my love for women's sports and my background, and sure there was some conversation about me wanting to help, and I do remember you were probably like, all right, what's this guy doing? Like, calm down for a second. But I think somehow I earned your trust, and you know, for the last, I guess, 6 years, then since it's 2018, just have had an opportunity to, do what I already love doing, just the covering the W, covering the sport through my camera. And I think the work that I've done with you and how it's improved over time has just been a testament to my general growth behind the camera. But the things that I've been able to shoot for you and for the organization, like I'm just proud of that work. I'm proud to have been able to be, a small part of helping you get to this milestone point. And listen, where's the next 10 at?
Oh, you guys, don't make me cry already.
You're a
It's only
thug.
been a
Cut it.
few minutes.
You're a G. Cut it out.
What if it was part of the
So, I feel like a tear would be shed at some point today. Maybe not. We'll see. But um, so I do remember where we met. It was not minorities in sports. It was hashtag sports.
You're right. You're
They
right.
had a conference somewhere in Manhattan. I don't remember the venue. Um, but that's where I met you. And I feel like I had seen you before at Liberty Games before, but that's where I remember like talking to you.
Mm.
And I remember it's been how many years now? So I'll be honest. I remember feeling like this guy is pressed. Like you were so like you would not take no for an answer.
Nope.
And I remember you basically told me, I don't remember verbatim, but like in a nutshell, if I could paraphrase, you were like, I'm going to do help you no matter what. Like I want to help you. I want to be a part of this. Like, and I'm not taking no for an answer. And I was just kind of like, it was like the first time I've ever encountered really anybody like that, like in my professional setting or anything that was just like, no, like I'm not gonna leave it up to chance. I'm not gonna let you leave here and you think about it. I will see you at the next game. And that's that. And that was
Sounds
that.
about right. Sounds about right.
And Akeem, when I remember when you applied, obviously to hear that you Googled Beyond the W and you were doing a Google search and Beyond the W came up at 2016 when I tell you I was so like no one's gonna ever see my website. Like no one's ever gonna put women's sports and Beyond the W is gonna pop up. Like unless you look up Beyond the W specifically, it's not gonna pop up. So that little ad had been up for a little bit, like a couple weeks. It's been up, and it was only you. It was you and like two or three other people. But I remember like looking at your resume and your work, and I was just like, okay, he got something going on here. He's talented. I like what he is, but I also was so desperate. I was like, I need help. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna bring him on board. And I remember specifically it's you and this other person that had applied, but your work was like stronger. And I didn't want to take on too many people at the same time because I was still kind of like, I don't know where this is gonna go. I'm gonna like pay anybody. Let me just like this. I just need one extra person. And I think you two have been so instrumental in Beyond the W's just existence, not success, just existence, because you guys know everything that I've been through in my personal life, and as well as what you guys got going on in your own personal lives, and how much like without you guys, like Beyond the W would not be around like anymore. Like I would have allowed it to go, be it, but you guys have stuck it, helped me to stick it through, and helped me to see it through because of your work. And I've seen the growth in your work and in your talent and in your like Akeem, like when I tell you I give you the keys, like I really meant it because like I've just watched how you've evolved and your writing has evolved. And same thing with you, Lamar. Like your work has just been amazing. But I can give you guys flowers, but I'm gonna save some of them for to sprinkle throughout the episode. Okay. So um so you guys kind of answered my second question, what made you decide to join the team? So you guys kind of um answered that. But another question I had is since you guys have been a part of the team, what are some memories that stick out with just whether it's Beyond the W related, whether it's just covering women's sports, women's basketball as a whole over the last like 8 years for you, 6 years for you, 10 years, 7 years, however long. What memories come to mind when you think of just your time with us?
I would say that one of the memories that definitely sticks out is having that opportunity to cover my very first All Star game. I
Mm-hmm.
had, and that was in Minnesota, and you was there, Low.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that like it was yesterday. Like I had never covered a WNBA All Star game before. Like, and not only that, I had never even been to Minnesota before. I've never been to Minnie before. That was at that All Star game. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like that was such a blast, and it's so amazing because when I was at that All Star game, I remember I was, this was when Lisa Borders was still league president.
Mm-hmm.
It was a situation where I was at my hotel because my hotel, for some reason I had got a hotel all the way in freaking St. Paul. Big mistake, by the way, on my part. I should have had a hotel in
I
Minneapolis.
stayed in St. Paul too. I stayed in St. Paul as well.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
Wow.
yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. But go ahead.
It's so amazing. But I had the interview. I had this hotel in St. Paul, and when I had got to the hotel, one of the things that I was working on was that I was actually working on a column um, basically talking about the next year's All Star game, which was 2019. So essentially,
Mm-hmm.
this was, I believe, the first year of the Las Vegas Aces. And there was so much talk at that time about, the WNBA and Las Vegas at the time. So I basically decided to write this column basically saying, okay, if they're gonna do an announcement for the 2019 All Star Game, then it's almost a stone cold lead pipe cinch that they got to do it in Vegas. So the next day, I go to Lisa Borders' State of the W presser, and she does this very very creative intro, and then she basically announces that the 2019 All Star Game is going to be in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you, I wanted to run out of that press room and just scream, like, did she read my column the day before the presser? I'm like, wait a second, like, how did I just call this 24 hours prior to? So
Mm-hmm.
that was definitely something. The experience in Minnesota was a blast, and then it's led me to, like I said, just having the chance to cover other events and all-star games, Chicago, Las Vegas, Phoenix. I know I'm planning on going to Indy in 25. So I mean, like, but that is definitely one of many that definitely stand out to me.
Minnesota. was my first All-Star game too. And I think I've only been to two All-Star games, I think that one in 2019 in Vegas, and I don't think I've been to one since then. But 2018, not only was it my favorite, and I know Minnesota is like, it's Minnesota. Personally, Minnesota's my favorite cities. Like, I love Minnesota, Minneapolis specifically. It is so in the summertime. I don't do the snow October 1st thing that they do over there. That's a little crazy. But no shade to people from Minnesota, but during the summertime, it's so beautiful. And I feel like 2018 was such a change, a pivotal year because I met people that I I met like my tribe, if that makes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was the first time that both you and I got to like be around each other like in person and like work in person. And I remember specifically me and you went to dinner.
I
I
think
think we went to dinner somewhere in Minnesota. I don't know where this place was. I'm trying to think. Was it Minnesota? It had to have been Minnesota because it couldn't have been anywhere else.
so.
I think it was in Minnesota. I really do. I think you and I went to dinner, and me and you, and I think I was really like feeling very insecure about some stuff with Beyond the W, whatever like that. And I will never forget that conversation because you spoke so much life into me. Like you basically were like, "Girl, get up!" Like no,
Get
like this
it
is gonna happen
together.
for you, yo. And I was like, this is my first like, I will honestly say personal conversation with him, and it's the first of many because Akeem is like very motivational and very just like he knows exactly what to say when you need it. And that's the first time I ever had it, and I wasn't expecting it. So I'm kind of nervous, just kind of like, I'm like, okay, he works for me. Like, I don't want to show him like my hand in a way. Like, I don't want him to think I'm unstable, I'm unreliable, I got too much going on. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
but something was on my mind, like really heavy that day. And I just started talking to him about it, just like casually. And then he just like poured so much. Oh, yes. I think it was me, you, and Princess.
Yeah, I do remember Princess was there
Yes.
too that
Me,
year.
you, and Princess. It was two, yes, it's the three of us.
Hmm.
And she was just, and two of you guys just were just so motivational and so helpful. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Speaking of Princess, that, so I met Princess also not that long, maybe like the year before. I met her at NABJ.
Mm.
And similar what you said about Googling Beyond the W, she was looking for me at NABJ and was like, hey, I want, I read Beyond the W. I'm a fan. I want to like, I want us to like do something together, whatever. And I was just like, what? Like, I was like, you heard of Beyond the W? Like, to this day, it still freaks me out when people say that. But I can kind of understand it today because it's been so long. At that point, we only been around for like this amount of time. I barely had been really outside of New York like that. So I was like, what? So me and her decided to go to All Star together, and we had launched the podcast. I think that year or the year before,
I believe so.
we launched the podcast. So we're like, let's go to All Star, and of course, I'm like, how the hell we gonna go there? How where we gonna stay? Because I ain't got it, right? Like money's tight, whatever. So she said she had a friend whoever she was staying with, they were like, we could stay with them. So I'm like, this is so not. Who am I staying with? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Who
as a
all
New
gonna be there?
Yorker, as a New Yorker, as a Caribbean, my head is on a swivel. I'm like, who are we staying with? So we end up staying in, I think it was in St. Paul, and oh my God, I don't know where he's coaching at now, but Blake Dodonis, he's a coach. I think he had just started like college coaching, possibly. His wife is the daughter of Coach. Tibbs.
Coach Tebow. Yeah.
Tebow. Sorry,
Mhm.
wrong league. Tebow's daughter.
First four letters are the same.
Right. I was like, wait a second. So I think they had got married like a couple years prior. They just got this house not that long before. Gorgeous home, so much room, so much space. So Princess and I stayed at his house along with Jasmine Brown, who was the friend that Princess knew.
Mm.
Also staying in the house was Ari and Erica Ayala, Jasmine Baker, and Blake's friends that came over were Aria, W Insider,
Mhm.
and Eli Horowitz. I'm saying his last name.
Horowitz
But now he's like the GM or whatever
at the
of,
Sparks.
of the Sparks. But at the time,
Wow.
he was at the time actually he was with Insider. I think he had started Insider with Aria, and he had just got a job with the Sparks doing communications. So that was his last like little event, I think, covering for Insider because he was going to start working for the Sparks in
Right.
communication. And I met all of them
That's
that
crazy.
summer. And so that is a core memory because I always say, like, that's when I met my tribe.
Mm.
So between working with you in person, meaning Ari, I knew already, like, and Eric Ayala, I knew them from covering the Liberty, but it's my first time, like, in like a home, like,
Mm.
you know what I mean, like almost like a real world road rules type situation, like staying in the house, like
Something
with a
like
bunch of
that.
right.
Big old
And
WNBA retreat.
it literally, and Blake's wife wasn't there. I think she was away on a scouting trip or something, so she wasn't there. So it was just him, and we just took over their whole house. So I will ever like, I'll forever be grateful. Number one to Blake for opening his home, and his wife also, even though she wasn't there, for being comfortable enough to allow us in her home with her not being there. Um, I don't know if they still, I don't think they still live there because I know she got a job somewhere else or whatever like that. I don't know if they still have the house, but the house was absolutely gorgeous. I remember I was so simple back then too. Cause that's what happens when you don't leave New York.
Mm.
So at the time I wasn't leaving New York that often. I remember being so blown away. I think their home was like a new construction. Like now that I've been around, now that I'm in the South, I see it all the time. I was so blown away that they had their laundry room on the level on the second floor with the bedrooms. I was like, oh, this is rich. This is luxury.
He was flabbergasted.
When I saw the walk-in pantry, I've seen pantries. I never seen a walk-in pantry. You know what I mean? Like the big island in them. I was like, oh, this is luxury.
Because in New York, you're like crammed into these like small,
Cause
tight
I hadn't been
rooms.
nowhere. I haven't been nowhere really. You know what I'm saying? So this is the
Yeah.
first time like being like, oh my gosh. I mean now I'm in the South. Those houses are popping up everywhere. So I'm used to it
Yeah.
now. But at the time, 2018, I was like, never seen anything like that.
The
And what I'll
past
also say
culture shock.
too, what I'll also say for that All Star, to me, I think that was the last. How can I say this? That was the last organic All Star as far as player interaction. Hear
Mm.
me out. I feel like that was the last All Star slash major sporting event, like W related, where you could just walk up to a player and you could just sit down next to them and you could just interview them. Starting next year, which we'll get to next year, Lamar, because that's when me and you were in Vegas. Starting the next year, things changed because the W is getting more visible, and I guess media rules and decorum were starting to change a little bit.
Hmm.
With the league being bigger, getting more exposure, having more eyes on it, having more media come to cover it. So that was the last time I was able to just sit next to a player and just talk to them. Um, that organic sense that, how can I say, that organic sense of interaction with players and personnel that made Beyond W what it was and was my comfort zone.
Mm.
that was my comfort zone. Just like that's just who I am naturally. Like I'll talk to anybody. Like I'll be in the store and just have a conversation with the lady by standing behind me on the line at Publix to get a sandwich, like I did earlier. I'll start a conversation with you know what I'm saying while I'm at the car wash waiting for my car. Like that just sense of a sit down and just start talking. That's naturally who I am. So to have structure in a sense of like you have to request, and I'm not saying I never did it before. Of course I did it before, but like you can only talk to players in this specific, and I'm not saying the locker room thing. I understand not talking to players in the locker room. Of course not. They deserve their privacy. But just like you have to request ahead of time to talk to players. You have this much time to talk to them. You know what I'm saying? Their PR, everybody standing like right there, like on a regular basis was hard for me to get adjusted to. And the rebellious side of me, which I've grown now. But the rebellious side of me was like, I don't want to conform to your rules. Fuck your rules. But that was the last time like I really felt like that I was able okay, that was the last time I was able to conduct interviews the organic way that I had been doing up to that point. After that, changed. Because the league changed. Exposure changed, growth changed. And I was faced with having to adjust and I had a really hard time adjusting. So I just wanted to say that. But 2019, 2018 was amazing. I love Minnesota. It's such a pretty city. Would I move there?
Yes.
I, for an amazing opportunity, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't, I wouldn't turn my nose at it the way I used to. Cause before, cause you just how, you know how we're just so ignorant. Like us, you know how we're ignorant. Us in the tri-state area, we are ignorant. We're like, ew, ain't who going to Minnesota? Now I would gladly go. Gladly go. Now to move and live my whole life, obviously that's a discussion I have to have with hubby, and that's different. But you know what? Hold on, wait a minute, cause it's cold down here too.
Listen.
It's cold down here too. Surprisingly, finally, right now it is 42 degrees and raining. So it's not as long as it's not snow. I don't mind a little snow. I can't take the blizzard stuff. So, um, but yes, sorry, I just like ran off on a tangent with that. But Lamar, how about you? Like, what are some memories that stick out with you when you think of your time hanging with us?
I mean, well, you said we'll get to to Vegas All Star, so that's on my list because I wrote some stuff down too. But I guess in the spirit of looking into 2025 and the Hall of Fame inductee, our interview with Cappy, that whole process was
Yeah,
great. Like being a Rutgers alum, what she means to me on a personal level. Like I had a cat that I named after her. Like that's how much I love Cat. So for probably the biggest production task that I've done with you outside of us handling All Star, being us, doing that sit down, her giving us that time. You killed that interview. I'm sitting there dragging 3 cameras worth of gear, running all of them by myself. But again, just to share that moment with you with someone that I admire so much, that was always amazing. And in terms of just having work that we could always show, I look at stuff now, I'm like, hey, I wish the mics were a little bit different, or this stuff a different way. But like a 40+ minute interview that you killed, that I put together, that's a major milestone in a memory for me because of how we did it, how it came about. Obviously who all was involved. Um, like you said, All Star in Vegas as well was major. We just figured it out, like we're all kind of prone to do. Um, I think I was staying at an Airbnb somewhere nearby. And I'm pretty sure that was my first time ever in Vegas. That heat is different. Like it, I just remember being smacked in the face as soon as I opened that door. But the hospitality of everyone there was great, and just seeing kind of the budding beginnings of what Vegas has become in terms of being like a gold standard in the league for all the things that they do. Now you see a team like Golden State coming in and is like, hey, you're probably keeping up with what Vegas did, but again, just being in it, being there with you, getting to do that work and just hustle and bustle, and again, just be around all of these amazing women and and the creators, men and women, and just be in that space. Like that was a great time, for sure. And I'll probably just say lastly, just the last two finals. Obviously being from the tri-state, you and I, Lo, seeing New York be there, and just holding the banner for us. Like I know, life is taking you down to the south, but to still be able to walk in there and have our group's name on the badge and still get to see that, and just the emotions that went along with the last 2 years, to be able to shoot that just kind of in New York for 23, see Vegas win. Like we all got love for Vegas, but it stings as a personal fan of the Liberty growing up. But just being able to monitor, to cover that was amazing. And then the flip side of this year, being able to get to all 5 games. The fact that it went to 5 games, um, and being able to do that in the midst of, y'all know what I was going through this summer, um, but to still get to do amazing work and, make those connections and kind of be reminded like, hey, you've been in this women's basketball game for a while, like you're appreciated, um, and to do it on that scale, and then have it capped off with New York winning. That was amazing, and that only happens because of your vision that has been going strong for 10 years now. So always grateful for that.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And I'm still mad that I didn't get to one game this final season. When I saw that, I was like, why? It's the finals game. Like the day it was, I forgot what day it was. I think it was like in the middle of the week or something. I just knew I could not get to it, and I was so stressed out. Um, but I love, I love all of that. I'm trying to think. Cappy's interview. Now I look back and I think about it, like we were official, like we were mad professional.
Word,
Shout outs to us, like
word,
we were a whole production company, like
word.
faking it till we make it, but like you couldn't tell. Um, that
Exactly.
whole day just was like that was like so cool, and Cappy was so like I don't know, I can't put it into words. Cappy has, and that day particularly has such an aura
Hmm.
about her. Like she was just so chill, but like you knew you were sitting next to royalty. Like you knew you were sitting next to like a legend, but she didn't make you feel like it. She made you feel like you were sitting next to someone that you knew, or someone that was like, you ever had we interview somebody or you're around somebody who's like a legend in whatever it is that you are there to, it could be a sport, it could be a politician, it could be anything. And like, even though they're right next to you, they still feel inaccessible.
Mm.
Like, she didn't give off that. And she was very transparent and she was very open. And she was just so dope that day. And I will always forever be grateful to her. And I will always sing her praises. Um, and just like emphasize how much like we adore her because that interview was so good. Um, it went it came together pretty if I remember it came together pretty smoothly. I don't remember hiccups, but it's been a while, so there probably was, but it don't matter because it came together great. It came together really nicely. And yes, you were juggling around, man, in all different cameras. Hubby was sitting there helping out too. Like it was just like behind the scenes, you didn't know like it was literally a 3-man show.
Mm.
And I don't mean 3 ESPN level people. I mean, like 3 of us that like he's one professional and 2 very amateurs, and me and hubby like just trying to make it work. But you that was so fun. And All Star 2019 will always have a sour taste in my mouth because you know why? You know
Mm-hmm.
why?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
2019 All Star will always have a. Okay, so I think I've shared this. I shared it on my Instagram before, but so we go to All Star in Vegas. First All Star in Vegas. Everybody's excited. I think I went to when did Vegas um was it that season? Was it 2019 or 2018 that Vegas like moved to Las Vegas?
It was 18 when they moved from San Antonio to Vegas. 19 was All Star.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. All right,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember I went to the inaugural, like their first game in Vegas. So it was the year before. Okay, gotcha. So 2019, we go to All Star. It's in Vegas. Hollywood level shit for the time. At that time, Hollywood level shit. We're like, oh, this is different. A lot of people, not only there for the game, but it's also Vegas. There's a lot of people just in general, a lot of traffic, a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind, my mindset going to All Star that year, Lamar, you know, because I told you, I shared with you, I was over it. I did not want to be there because I just was like, I was just like in a weird place, just like not happy with where I wanted it to be and just like where I thought I would be just career wise.
Mm-hmm.
Legit, Lamar, had you not been in Vegas, I would not have left my hotel room the entire time. It's because I didn't want to leave you hanging. I left the hotel room.
Well, I appreciate
I'm dead
that.
serious.
Wow.
And I knew that you were staying somewhere. And I was like, where are you staying? Or I was calling you all the time. Like, did you get home safe? Did you get back in? Did you lock the door? Because I was like, where are you staying? Because,
I was literally like a 5-10 minute Uber
oh,
ride away.
you know I'm dramatic.
I know.
You know I'm dramatic. And
It's-
I'm a worry wart. You know that. So,
Mhm.
um, anyway, so we get to All Star. And I'm trying to think. So the skills challenge, I think, was the day before,
Think so.
right?
Think so.
I don't think was everything all in one day? I don't think so.
No.
Because I remember 2 different outfits. Yes. Day before was skills challenge in the middle of the daytime. Just unreasonable, right? So we had a great time. The WNBA has come a long way. We had a great time, and I think that's the year that Erica Wheeler went off. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
She had one All Star that she was just showing out. I don't know if it was the game or the skills challenge, like festivities, but she won something that
All Star
year.
MVP. I think it was
It,
the
I'm,
game.
I'm
It was
pretty
the it
sure.
was the
I'm
game,
pretty
right?
sure it was
Okay.
MVP.
So I remember that. I remember just like having a ball watching her in person, seeing all that stuff.
Mm.
But okay, so it's in Vegas, right? So we have some celebrities in the building, right? So boom, we spy with our little eyes the Mamba,
Mm.
the GOAT, the greatest of all time,
Mm.
and his protege, his daughter. We see Kobe Bryant and Gianna Bryant courtside. Okay, so this is like the biggest person in the building. There were other people there too, but to us, like this is like the biggest person.
Right.
So I want to go talk to him. And I had Pete. I'm not gonna say no names, but I had Pete, some other people who are media coming up and talking to him too. So I thought, okay, I guess we're gonna go talk to him, right? Not trying to do a full 35-minute sit down, but just like a quick little 1-2, hey, social media, or hey, we just want to get whatever, a quick little something about women's basketball, beyond the W, what you're doing for women's sports, that. And if Kobe is who I think he was around women's sports, I think he would have said okay. So we see Kobe, we're beelining, not running, but me and him power walking. We're like, because this was during halftime. It was like a break.
No,
Was it
I
during
think
halftime?
it was pregame. It was
Pre-game.
pregame
Okay.
because I remember I think we saw Kobe come in. I think I was already on the floor preparing my camera and whatnot, and we saw it. And I think you were going around, and like I have my story of how that picture came about, but you go ahead.
Okay. So I'm gonna tell my story side, and you add in if there's any discrepancies or missing pieces. So we're walking, cause we're like, all right, we're gonna go get this thing with Kobe, because like I said, I've seen some other people talk to him too. No shade, but just saw a couple other people. When I tell you, I swear, we had to be within feet of him, feet of behind him,
Arms length, arms length.
arm's length. Is this person still with the team? I don't think so, right?
I'm not sure.
A staff member. I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to make no enemies. A staff member. I'm not gonna say which side. I'm not gonna say if it's Aces or WNBA. I'm not gonna say because I don't want to whatever. But a staff member stops us dead, like in front of us, mid power walk, and it's like, hey, he's not talking to anybody right now. Like he's not gonna like. We can't talk to him. And I was just like, and I'm peeping out the corner of my eye, him talking to other people in media. And I'm not talking about like Holly Road type media. I'm talking about like
Our
other
level.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm just sitting here like, ain't no motherfucking way. Like arms length. So Lamar being brilliant as he is, this is why he's there, because I was so knee deep in my feelings. There's no way I was thinking clearly. He comes up with the idea to go around to the other side of the court. So now he's facing them from across the court. And he manages to get Gigi's attention. And I guess he holds up his camera to kind of like motion, like, can we get a picture? And she taps her father, and he sees Lamar waiting there, and they kind of scooch next to each other. And that is the picture that we shared.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that picture, I'm not gonna cry, but that picture is so important to us because that was what, July 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And less than a year later, they left us.
Mm.
So when he passed, it hit a little harder knowing that we were this close to talking to him, and this close to meeting him. Forget talking, forget interviews, just to meet him and just say, hey, we love you. Thank you for your gift. Thank you for your game. Thank you for entertaining us. Thank you for inspiring us. Thank you for what you're doing for women's sports. Thank you just for just thank you. Like cameras off, phones away. Like we were so close to just saying hi to one of the greatest, not just athletes of all time, greatest minds of all time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the future, who I'm sure, oh my gosh, she would have been killing it right now in college. I think she would have been in her first year now, or about to be in
Yeah, she was
college soon,
going to
right?
UConn.
Yeah, she wanted to go, or she could have put a fast one and say, "Yeah, I'm not going to UConn. I'm going to South Carolina." Like we didn't know what was going
No,
on.
she was going
There
to
was
UConn.
so
She was going.
Southern Cal.
listen. that was 4 years. In 4 years' time, a lot could change. NIL money could have hit. It would have been. It was a different ball game when she's committed to UConn back then. It was a different
That's right.
game.
That's right.
Listen, Gigi would have been giving other people NIL money. She would have been the heir to the company.
I'm just saying, like UConn would
Right.
have been cute. Yes, cool. Like, but she could have pulled a fast one and said, you know, I'm going. I don't know. I'm going to go to UVA. It could have been anywhere. But um, rest in
Ruck-
peace, Kobe Bryant and Gianna,
To
for
the
sure,
to the goat,
and
to
all
the
the
goat.
other lives that were lost that incredibly horrific day.
Right.
Yeah, what a memory.
Mm.
Yeah, listen, on the photo side of that, again, it happened so quick, and I could my the way my brain works, I'm only thinking about like the technical side of it. Like when I look at the photo, I'm like, knowing what I know now, like it's sharp. It's not as sharp as I want it to be, but that's just me being technical on that. But again, on the I'm on the sideline, on the baseline rather, getting warm up shots, getting ready to get started, and I see what's happening with Lo. Obviously, we debrief after, and she explained exactly what happened. But I see her like not be able to say anything to Kobe, and again, I'm just like waving down. I try to wave down Gigi. I think it was Gigi, it was Kobe, and they were with like two other guys. Not sure exactly the relationship to them, but you could tell they were all talking together. So I think initially I got the attention of one of the other guys, and I'm kind of again like pointing over, like pointing to Gigi. Gigi sees me, I point like, hey, can you get your dad? And like within seconds, they frame. I maybe get 4 or 5 frames off, and you get the one that obviously sticks with us. And again, you're thinking, listen, we can't talk to him. We didn't get that close. It sucks in the moment. We're not thinking he's not going to be at another All Star or another event
Right.
Yeah.
or some finals or whatever, or just be around in general. Like that's probably why, like you say, this stings and it hurts so much because again, I get why people were doing their job, but it just hurts when, like you said, you were being addressed and like behind that staffer's back, like other people are getting to talk to him. So, we just kind of missed out on a core memory of, getting him to do that drop for us. Or, again, even if he didn't want to be on camera, just saying thank you for, shining the light on the game that we all love so much. But, power of photography, right? The
Hmm.
fact that we have that, something beautiful out of a tough moment. I'm grateful I was there.
I'm grateful that we were there too, for sure. Um, and another great
Definitely.
thing from. Oh, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
I was just saying, definitely deserve to be there. Absolutely.
And another great thing that came out of that All Star. I don't know if you remember, but after the game, remember there was like, I don't know if it was a restaurant, but it was some kind of like after party thing that some of the legends put together. So
Yes,
some of the
yes.
legends, like some of the OGs, like of the league, had some kind of like little get together something
Mm-hmm.
in the same like in the same building, hotel, whatever it was. And I don't remember all of it. I'm trying to remember who was there. I feel like people in and out, but I just remember me and Lamar having a great convo with Teaspoon.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Like that's the one thing that stuck out. And one thing that she said to us that time, was we were talking about just like because she wanted to know what we did, like more about Beyond the W. Because I had interviewed her like courtside before, like when she was working on the Liberty coaching staff. So I spoke to her before. So that's the first time like we got to like really like chop it up and tell her about it. And I remember one thing she talked about was like, and she was like really interested in us too. Um, she talked about how basically like the need to like make a space for legends and
Mm-hmm.
like retired players, like
Right.
in like a celebratory kind of way. Because sometimes like when they retire or they don't really get a chance to officially retire like publicly, they just kind of fall off of a roster, don't get picked back up, and the next thing you know, they go pick up a job somewhere else coaching or on the front end side of the front office side of stuff. But it's kind of like creating a platform that will kind of like celebrate legends and have conversation about their experiences and everything. I don't remember it verbatim, but I feel like that was the gist of the conversation, and I remember very vividly because she seemed so invested. And another thing too with the next year, it wasn't just about like Kobe's passing; it was also COVID. COVID was the
Mm-hmm.
very next year, so like
Mm-hmm.
whatever momentum we left All Star with, and we're like, all right, next year we're gonna like do this, we're gonna do that. I think next year, I think that 2020,
Was the
I
logo,
think
right?
2020 could have been like Kobe's year. He was eligible to be in the Hall of Fame, maybe 2020 or 2021. Um, taking what Teaspoon said and like trying to like incorporate into what we're gonna do the following year. Baby, ain't nobody going outside in 2020. Nobody's going out. Ain't nobody going to no games. Ain't no
Right.
nothing. We all in the
Everything's in
house.
bubble.
So whatever we got, whatever we wanted to do and things we took away from that All Star, I remember had to be put on pause because of more dire things taking place on a global scale. So,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The world stopped.
um, right. But All Star was, it was, I will say this, it started off hard for me personally, like being there. Like I really didn't want to be there. But not only the game went really well, it was great working with you. Obviously, in person was really great. There was an interaction back. Remember, there was an interaction when we were going to the media room.
Keep going.
I'm not gonna say because I'm not saying no names. It was
Okay.
an interaction. There was
Okay.
an interaction going in the media room that really like ruffled your feathers.
Okay. We'll talk offline about
Okay,
it. If it
so
got to me, I was happy to be there. So if
oh,
it
you
got
were you were
me
pissed.
off, then
You were pissed. You were pissed. So it was a rough start,
mm,
but by the end of it all, an amazing game. Got to meet amazing people. Got to connect with legends. Got to connect with each other and work together in person. And I think the day I was supposed to leave, um, something happened with my flight. So I ended up going to this hotel that had a pool. No, a rest. I went somewhere with like a pool and a restaurant. I hooked up. I think I may have hung out with Tarika. Like I hung out with somebody else. So who was also like in women's sports. I forgot the name of her page, but I know she does more so stuff on Facebook.
okay.
And she covers like women's sports in general. This beautiful, amazing woman. I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but I see her face. Um, and we hung out, and that was like a great time. So by the time I left, I had an amazing time. But yeah, 2019 was something.
It was
2018 and
wild
2019 was
times. Wild
something.
times.
Those are years to remember.
Okay, so let's see. Now here come the questions off the top of the dome.
Okay.
That I don't have anything written down. So we talked about some of our core memories. Um, what is, I guess, one of the, I don't say harder, but what is like a really like, what's one of the hardest lessons that you learned through working with Beyond W, like just in general with covering women's sports in general? Like, what are, it could be a personal thing, it could be just like a general outlook, but like, what are some tough pills that you had to swallow during this time?
Say I go first on this one. I think the main one is something that I believe we all can kind of fight through is just remembering, you're her, we're him. Like remembering the space that we stand in. I'm grateful that all the people in our space are continuing to grow in all their different areas. It's a blessing to see, but I feel like life has life a little extra for for us in ways
Listen,
where like you said with 19, like the momentum kind of hit us a little bit differently, and the fact that we're all so spread out, um, I think it has limited a little bit of where we could have gone, but again, still being here is a testament to just remembering like no, we've earned our space here. We, even if it's not every day, every week, we do work. Like Akeem's been writing his butt off. I don't know. I'd love to see if you know how many articles you've written in the times that you've been here. I was.
I lost count.
It's got to be in the hundreds, if not thousands. I'm sure.
Like,
Um,
definitely.
sidebar. I was at Rutgers Fairleigh Dickinson shooting. I want to say last week, and I see a coach on Fairleigh Dickinson, Jessica Simmons, and she's like, you're still shooting. You've been doing this since I was playing, and like, I was grateful for that because I think we all deal with imposter syndrome and thinking like, do we belong in this space when you have setbacks and things like we've talked about, knowing that we do get work. Like you're a great interviewer, Lo. Like you have true interest in these players and in the sport, and you want to show care for the people and the institutions that you're covering. Same thing with Akeem and how he's writing, and me and trying to capture everyone in the same light. And when we have hit some of those obstacles that maybe some others who maybe don't care as much haven't had to deal with, you're just like, dang, I think that's when we may have questioned our our spot internally at times. But the fact that we're still here, the fact that we didn't give up, um, the fact that we are wherever we are, and the fact that we still get wins, like the finals, like us being approved to go to the Hall of Fame in the summer of 25. Like, hopefully all of us can get there since it's a little more central in Tennessee. You know, we belong, and I think that's the biggest thing I've taken from working with y'all is that no, we have experience, we've been putting in work, and we're valuable, and we just have to remember that, even in the times when maybe it doesn't feel like that.
How about you, Akeem?
I think you just hit the nail on the head, Lamar. I mean, I think, like you said, I mean, I know, Lo, that you've definitely told us, stories of, sometimes how you felt down, sometimes how you felt, some sort of way about, maybe not necessarily getting the recognition. But I think it's just a situation where I think that really, I think that that's really the value of just understanding the tribe. just understanding our tribe and just understanding that, we have, people around us. You've had people around us that, that have told us, hey, look, we love what you do. We love what you do. Like, we know what Beyond the W is. Like, it's so interesting because I remember when I was in Phoenix, I was talking to this one woman. I think it was after the first day, I believe it was. But I was talking with somebody, had a brief conversation with somebody who covers baseball for Sports Illustrated, who was assigned to cover All Star, and I told her about Beyond the W, and she was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely heard of them. I've definitely seen their work. I mean, like, you do a great job." So I think it's just interesting, and I think it's just important to always remember, like, yeah, maybe it's a situation where, and don't get me wrong, I'm happy. I want everybody to win. Like, I want
Mm-hmm.
everybody to win. I want everybody to raise that W flag. Like, honestly, like, I want everybody to, to get into the win column. But I think it's just a situation where we just got to remember, like you said, I mean, we've been doing this for a pretty good bit of time. And sometimes I think what we need to do is, look back on those, on those old interviews, or look back on some things that we did. Like, I remember, I think it was either 2017 or 2018, when there was, so much talk about the renovations that were going on to Key Arena. I remember, like, I was one of those who was
Mm,
really hot on the trail of those developments, because I was one who wrote something about, okay, like, where could the Seattle Storm potentially play while they're doing these renovations to Key Arena, which of course is now Climate Pledge Arena. And I had wrote down like possibly four arenas somewhere in the Seattle area that they could play. And it's so interesting because I think that somewhere it was some sort of like kooky municipal document or something, but I noticed that somewhere in that municipal document, so ironically, was that it named the same exact four arenas that I mentioned in my
Mm.
piece. So it's so amazing, like, just kind of, understanding, okay, we're doing something, and we're doing something legit. So when we go to
mhm.
All Star, when we go to the Hall of Fame, when we go to finals, when we go to the draft, I think that's just the main thing to always, to always keep in mind. Like, another thing that I'm definitely proud of is, when I had the opportunity to interview Gina Duncan, the lady that, that's over the Brooklyn Academy of Music,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mhm.
obviously that was where they had the draft before,
Mhm.
this past season. So, and nobody else had thought to interview the president of the Brooklyn Academy of Music prior to the draft, and I turn it into a, kind of a human interest type story about nonprofits and everything. So I think that's one of the things to always remember, and just always also remember, hey, look, a lot of those that we have met during this time, and, that we've been in the WNBA space, they are some of our biggest cheerleaders.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's something
Amen
as
to
well,
that.
I think that's crucial that we always got to remember. They're rooting
Yeah.
for us, and we're rooting for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely right. And I think in other spaces, in other industries, sometimes you don't see that. Um, and sometimes I can definitely say over the last decade, exactly what you said. People that we started off with, and maybe we all started on the same playing field, and then they've gone on to do amazing, great things, right? They're still looking back like, girl, like your seat is right here too. Like you belong here too. Like whenever you're ready, like okay, get it together. But whenever you're ready, like we have space for the three of you guys. We got space for Beyond the W. Like we want to see you win. And I think that sometimes is reassuring to get me out of my own head. Um, to answer that question about the biggest pill I've had to swallow, um, I think I had to come to the realization, the two things. Number one, that at some point you got to look inward and you cannot blame everything all around you. You have to look at yourself and hold yourself accountable on what you can do and what you should be doing. Because there are things that are like bigger than me, but I think I focused so much on the things that were bigger than me that was preventing us from getting to where we wanted to go that I um kind of left it at that and not looked at inward at what I could be doing better. Another thing that I had to it was a tough pill to swallow, but it also was kind of reassuring in a way, is that this is mine. Like, this is my own thing. This is not attached to any name. This is my own thing. So I cannot possibly fully compare myself to my peers because they are, for the most part, a lot of the people that we care about, we love, that are in this space. They're working for another entity that has some kind of footing in sports or media or entertainment or something like that. This is all me, all mine. So while there's a lot, the tough pill to swallow part is there's a lot that I didn't I didn't know going into it of like what it would entail to make this a business, right? Because I kind of started it with it being a blog, and when I quickly saw and I was shown by one of my mentors, um, David Aldridge, when he told me this can be, because when I met him, at NABJ, and I just told him my little idea, he was like, "Oh, no, 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 honey, this is not a blog. This is what it could be." And I'm like, "Huh?" I was not prepared for that big picture he was showing me.
Mm.
So that was the hard pill part. But the part where I give myself grace is I started this in 2014, 2015. There was no, not say there's no, there were other places, companies, entities that were doing their own thing covering women's sports, but they're all small like me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there's no blueprint for this. I have to like there are blueprints on how to create a media company, but when you make it about women's sports, as niche as it was in 2015, there is no blueprint for that.
Right.
Right? I think the only I used to try to look at like UFC and what they were doing, but still UFC was still bigger than in like they had more of interest in finances and everything like that, even though they were very niche at the time. UFC now was just like big conglomerate, whatever. But at the time it was very specific, like that MMA world.
Mm.
So I had to give myself grace, like, girl, this is different. What you're doing is very different, and the heights you're trying to go with it is very different than what anyone has really tried to do. Excuse me, with something catered to women's sports only. Since then, there's been other places that have come around, like Just Women's Sports or um, Highlighter, and now Whoopi just launched her sports network or whatever like that. So there's things have come along since then, and I'm sure there were things around at the time. Like there's this one woman. Oh my gosh, I forgot the name of her website. I want to say I think hers Women's Sports Network. It's very small. I don't know if she still has it, but she used to cover the Liberty. Her name is Denise. It's an older black woman, and her name is Denise. And she had that website, and it was her and her friend that used to come religiously. And come to find out, me and her had a conversation. She's a pharmacist. Miss Mamas used to come from working as a pharmacist
Wow.
Mm.
and come and cover the Liberty.
Wow.
So I'm like, so I didn't feel alone in that because we all had day jobs in a lot of times in completely other worlds, and then came to cover, the Liberty or whatever team it was. Um, and there was another, was it, is it Hoops Feed? There was another website. I want to say it's Hoops Feed. I could be wrong, but it's a black woman who had it. I want to say her name is Cheryl. I never got it. I don't think I ever met her in person, but I think that's her name. And she had a website at the time. And I remember those two were the women who stuck out to me because they had their own.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, yeah.
And eventually, met Christina Williams with Girl Talk Sports, and then Aria with W Insider or whatever. So like, and then Howard started his own thing. So like since then, yeah, there've been other things, but I remember being very alone in that, and I used to like beat myself up over it. But it's just like it's okay. Like you're doing something that's never been done before. Give yourself grace, calm down, and also I gave myself like a 3 to 5 year plan. When I look back on my 3 to 5 year plan about where I want beyond the WWE, I was like so hard on myself. Like this was supposed to be my bread and butter. I was supposed to be making money. I was supposed to do whatever. But then it's like that's where the you don't have no control over it part comes from because 2018 beyond like women's sports is just starting, like women's basketball is starting to like catch the attention of like more people.
Right.
So I could do my own thing, but I'm still gonna be broke. I'm still gonna be doing things out of pocket. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not the lifestyle what I thought it was going to be. It still couldn't have been that because women's sports just wasn't there yet.
Mm, yeah.
5 years from 2014, 2015, COVID. Like I said, ain't nobody going outside. No one's leaving the house. So there goes that.
Right. Exactly.
So now going to 2025, now we can have a different conversation because women's sports now is getting the eyeballs, it's getting the attention, things like that. So now it's just like, how do we take all this experience that we have, that we've built, and reintroduce it to the mass, to the world, as well as we'll use it as leverage when trying to get in certain spaces or partnerships or whatever like that. I too, for a long time, had imposter syndrome. Kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and being transparent. Did I look who I just said I met in Minnesota or created bonds with in Minnesota, and look at where they all at now. You want to talk about imposter syndrome?
Mm,
I didn't feel like I was good enough to be their friends.
wow.
You know what I'm saying?
I see
But
what you mean.
then, cause like, look what Ari's doing. Look what Erica Ayala's doing. Look Jasmine Brown. Look what she's doing. Look what Princess is doing. Princess is not doing media anymore, but she's working front office side now. I think she works front office. Then for the not say I think I know where she works. I just don't know if I want to say if she wants me to share it out loud. But
Yeah.
she works front office now for on the NBA side of things, doing amazing things. Everybody's doing amazing things. Look at
Yeah.
Eli.
Mm-hmm. Look at Christina. Look at what she's
Look
doing
at
with Eyeball.
Christina.
Christina,
Miss
Tarika,
Mama's just introduced somebody at Jingle Ball the
Brady.
other Jingle Ball. Do you know how big Jingle Ball is in New York City, the tri-state area? And she just
Huge.
introduced somebody. It's about imposter syndrome. And meanwhile, I'm watching all my friends win, 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 win. I'm watching you win. I'm watching you win. And I still got a case of the 35 cases in CPS. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, so I feel like I didn't belong. Do I feel like that now? No. I don't feel like that now. But it took me a long time to get to that point. I will say COVID helped because it made everything stop. So
Mm,
I had a chance to just like sit down and just be like, okay, like what am I gonna do? Who am I in this? Whatever. Now I feel different than I did then, but those are some hard pills I had, like life lessons that I had to learn, and I'm still working through. But I'm at a different place mentally than I was now, for sure, for sure. Um,
Listen, COVID was as crazy as it was, and listen, pray for all the lives that were affected with that, just in general. But
mm,
mhm.
when you saw the trees healing, when people weren't outside and things were going on, like it was
yeah.
happening to a lot of people in general
Listen,
too. Listen, I remember, I was still a year plus into being at NJIT, and we were working remotely for I think from March when stuff shut down.
mhm.
I didn't go back into the office anything close to part time until August. But knowing my career on the SID side, like I hadn't had a summer or anything to kind of just rest my body for a while. So to be able to work from home and kind of just regroup energy wise
Mm-hmm.
was big. So I know anyone that was able to stay safe and all that, um, in the midst of the chaos, as chaotic as it was, there were some benefits.
Yeah, they definitely was. Um, it was crazy, but everyone got to relax. Meanwhile, in the midst of COVID, what did I decide to move? I decided to move. Hard in middle summertime
Mm.
2022, 2020.
Mm.
COVID is still out here acting a whole fool. No vaccine yet. Remember, vaccine wasn't introduced to the end of the year.
Mm.
And not only do I decide to move like 6, 7 hours, like a whole different like states away to the south-ish, as I call it. I say south-ish. It depends who you talk to, because
Mid Atlantic, Mid Atlantic.
the Mid-Atlantic region,
Good call.
DMV.
Good call.
Not only do I decide to move, but I decided to go work in a hospital. Like a cat. No vaccines yet, because the vaccines weren't introduced
Wow.
until I remember the rollout for the vaccines at my job was like November, and they were offering it to doctors and nurses first, and then we were up next. But they gave us the option, and I remember like Matt was like, "We are not getting that vaccine, please.
Mm.
We'll know what's in it." But a year later, I'm vaccinated fully. Get your vaccines, people.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
and please get your kids vaccinated because there's no reason why measles is around. Um,
And then COVID was also just, like you said, like you mentioned, Lamar, about, everything that was going on, where you're at. I mean, like it's a situation where, obviously, like the impact of COVID was different, of course, depending on where you was living. And
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
you had some places that did full shutdowns. You had other places that were still, at the very least, either partially open or still even fully open. I mean, so it was,
mhm,
so, like you said, that whole year, I mean, 2020, and then seeing the whole of the W relocate to Florida for the bubble season of 2020. I mean, like,
mhm.
Wubble was
absolutely,
crazy.
yeah.
The level was
Regular season as well
strange.
for Liberty, because they went 2-20 that year, but and the Sabrina injury,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, just that was a that still is a surreal time.
And it feels so far away, but it really was like COVID is still here. She's still around. She ain't leave.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Are we just all immune, or not that we all have? I'm sure we now have finally like have some kind of herd immunity because so many people got vaccinated. But like, she's still making her rounds, so let's not get it twisted. She's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
here.
Don't
She's just
slip
low
up.
We
key.
sometimes forget that.
She's just low key with it.
Yo,
'Cause,
look, here's the one thing, probably hopefully the last thing we can say about COVID. Like, I truly do think it affected people's sense of time
mm,
because that was literally like 5 years ago, and it's like what? Like
yes,
it
Yeah.
seems so
long
so
ago.
close, but yet so far. Like at the same time, like it's trippy. Um, but
Yeah.
about half of the time that you've had the business, we've had to deal with a pandemic. So I could definitely see where the sense of time could be affected on that.
Mm.
Absolutely. It's the whole time I've been, not say the whole time, but like I basically went through COVID here. Basically, I mean, I went through like the initial like shutdown hysteria, New York City. Like literally, you could drive from Washington Heights, Inwood, Washington Heights, all the way down to like Wall Street in the 25 minutes that it's supposed to take to get down there because ain't nobody was in Manhattan. Like
Yeah.
it's supposed to take 25, 30 minutes
Right.
to get from uptown all the way down by the seaport. But ain't no way you can do that when it's busy.
Mm.
Um but yeah, I went through that and then I moved here and it was shut down here too, not as tightly as New York, but it was still shut down, mask requirement and everything like that. But
Mm.
whew, a time. What a time. So, what has your time with Beyond the W? And I know we're almost at an hour and a half. So, um, what's your time with Beyond the W shown you about women's sports, just in general? Like, what have you learned about women's sports and women's basketball that maybe you didn't know before, or you never experienced before, or you never thought of before, and now you have seen?
Go ahead, Akim.
Well, if it's one thing that I've learned, I mean, like, women's sports, I mean, it's just, women's sports, women's basketball. I mean, like, one of the things that I've definitely discovered was, where has this been all my life? I mean, honestly,
Mm,
where has this been all my life? Like, like, when I first came on board in 16, I had no idea what it was because everything, like I said, it was just so new. Everything was so new. Like I was kind of familiar a little bit with the W, because I had family members who who would watch, like, who were like fans of the W from like the old school days. 1997, 1998, 1999, like the Houston Comets dynasty days. But as far as like my own foray into women's sports, I had no earthly idea what it was that I was getting into. But as I started, doing more work, doing more coverage, and then also I started, branching out more into like high school sports and everything. So I mean, it was, so I really found out that this really is the place to be. I mean, like it's
Mm-hmm.
really a boom period. And one thing that, that I look at myself, 2024 Akeem as opposed to 2016 Akeem is the fact that in these 8 years I've had the opportunity to really to really see exactly like the development of the development of professionals from the high school days, how they're able to progress from the high school days into the college days, into making it into the pros. I mean, so so just kind of getting really really into that entire sphere of just the entire women's sports space has really been fascinating to watch. And also, like you said, I mean, just as the fact that we've seen so much growth in women's sports, particularly women's basketball. I mean, these women are starting to get the money. I mean, these women are starting to
mhm,
get the money. Like, did you see how much they are? They're starting to pay for the unrivaled salaries. I think it's like 220 something $1,000. Those are more than WNBA salaries. So
mhm,
so it's amazing just to see exactly like you said how in 2016 you could say women's sports were probably niche, but in 2024, 2025, I mean, like, this is something that is real. And not only is it something that is real, it has staying power.
yeah,
Really, really solid staying power. And that has been one of the things that has been just so tremendous to watch.
mhm. How about you, Lamar?
So I guess lesson for me is probably kind of the opposite of what Akeem said. Where have the rest of y'all been?
Hmm.
um, in that, I come from, I think, a unique background, at least as a guy in this space, in that, I've been following for a minute. I first got introduced to the league. I want to say the year before it was ready to start in '97. I was in elementary school, and my school nurse, I think her son worked for the league. So
Hmm.
I remember her getting me like a pamphlet that had information about the first 8 teams, and like I'm sketching drawings of the logos in my notebook.
Oh,
You know what I
I
mean?
love that.
So, and again, I didn't get to watch as much, back, when I was growing up staying with my grandma. I don't remember how frequent it was on TV, but I remember watching a little bit. But I think my nexus point when it came to women's sports, I always say outside of that was my senior year of high school. So that was what, 03, 04 school year. Um, Going to all boys high school, following Elena Beard and Diana Taurasi in the Player of the Year race when she was at Duke and Taurasi obviously was at UConn. So that was kind of my major turning point following women's sports. And it's just the juxtaposition of where I was going to school, all boys Catholic school, and having that be like the main sports thing that I was following is always, excuse me, that's always just like a unique point in history for me. And then I go to Rutgers, so I'm working and following the team and making friends there. So that's where I met Cappy, made my relationships in the sports, in the women's sports realm there. Like that was such a pivotal point. I remember like Facebook had just started and I'm like messaging like all these other players that were big. And I'm like, hey, I'm working with the Rutgers players, like just want to connect because that's when like Facebook was innocent back then. So a lot of the branches of people that I know started there, just from being around the team or being around the players. You know, I was working some pro-ams, the West 4th Street Pro-Am in '06 for free. I was a team manager, taking the train from New Brunswick into the city just to like make sure players had their shirt like sizes and
Look, street
orders
team
and stuff like
style.
that.
We haven't seen a street team in how long now? They don't even do
Well,
those no more.
listen, we won the chip that year, so that's all I know. And listen, that was a crazy story too. Like it involves Tina Charles. Like I'll tell you that another day. But so my bearings in the sport come from that. And again, that was such a pivotal time in Rutgers history. They went to championship in '07 and then proceeded to deal with Don Imus right after. So, I'm in Maya Moore was at UConn during my time in school. Um, Again, like Matee, Adjavon, Essence Carson, Kia Vaughn, Tiffany Prince, like all of those players come through Rutgers as, and get to pros and various degrees. And then my connections based off of that are are working. I started shooting my junior year. So like the final 3 years I was in school, that's when I started doing the photography. Um, and then I get out of college, and after doing some nonprofit work that first year, my first job is working at a JUCO, and I'm an assistant women's basketball coach and assistant SID the first year. Transitioned to just communications SID work the last 2 years, and then everything that happens with the rest of my career. But I've always had a a soft spot for women's sports because one, like it's just a great product to follow. One, but two, I owe all of my any sports success I've had from you low on down to the woman that put a basketball in my hands. My late mother's Puerto Rican girlfriend, lesbian girlfriend, was through women. Like I didn't have my dad until later on in life, and y'all know that story. But my first coaching job came because of a woman advocating for me. Me being able to shoot the stuff that I've shot and have the experiences with Beyond the W that I've had, have come from you. Getting into working in sports in general, Rutgers people, like I owe any success that I've had through sports to the women that have paved the way. So I always feel like I'm going to run through a brick wall just to pay that back. And to tie it back to the initial question is like, I'm glad that, Caitlin and this Angel and this class of rookies are kind of that marker point like Elena and Diana may have been for me back when, but it's like we've been great for a long time. Everyone in this space that's played this game, that's laced up the sneakers or walked the sidelines or done all the things within the game. Like we've been here, and there are stories to be told, and I hope that if this is people's entry point, that they do go back and continue to learn the history and give these women, the women on the court, the men and women behind the scenes that all support what we all love, like give them their due. So it's a long ramble, but yeah, I'm just glad
No,
everyone's starting to catch up.
no, I love that. And I love that you shared your humble beginning story. And I love that. Aw, like touch my heart, you guys.
Aw,
Aw. Y'all
Absolutely.
trying to really make me cry, and I'm trying not to. Um,
you're almost there. You're almost there.
I'm almost
Close.
there. As for me, what have I learned about women's sports just in general? I think one of my biggest takeaway is the players. The players is what made me start Beyond the W, straight
Mm-hmm.
up. Um, I I guess in a nutshell, I started sports writing, trying to transition into sports as a quarter life crisis because I was 27, 26, 27, being dramatic. Like, I don't know what to do with my life. I'm not doing anything. Like, girl, you are 26. Calm down.
Right.
And I had a conversation with one of my close friends, um, Easter Sunday. We went to church, and then we went to dinner after at a spot in downtown Brooklyn. And we had, what's the name of that place? It's probably not there now. How many restaurants have come and gone since then? But
Mhm.
um, she had asked me a question, and I was telling her about everything. She was like, "Well, what's the one? If you could," she asked me what have I always wanted to do. Like, what are the many things I wanted to do when I was a kid? Like that I said I wanted to do. And one thing that I wanted to do, one of the many professions, because I want to be a pediatrician, I want to be a choreographer, I wanted to be a psychiatrist, but I also wanted to be an exec in the NFL. Don't know what that means, but it just sounded fancy when you're in 10th grade, right? And I took a sports management class, and I always talk about how much I love that class in high school. It was one of my favorite classes I've ever taken in any level of education. And she was like, if you could try any of those things, what would you do? So I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I've kind of worked healthcare adjacent. I was doing that at the time.
Mm.
Um, so what about sports? Like that's something I never tried. And she said, okay, well, if you're really serious about it, I could connect you to somebody. And I said, okay, I'm going to take it seriously. And the person she connected me to was a man by the name of Kevin Carr. At the time, he was the head of player development and player relations for the G League, the D League back then.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So I called Mr. Carr on the phone, and they met. They knew each other from like alumni like stuff. They both went to school in Florida. And I remember calling him one day on my lunch break. This is when you could just call people, and they were in their office and actually picked up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing too. I hate email. One thing about me, if it involves me physically typing, you will not get a response from me right away. You probably won't. If you call me, I'm gonna answer the phone. If I don't answer, because I literally cannot answer the phone at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I called him, and I literally was on the phone with him my entire lunch break, an hour. And sitting in my car, he spit so much game to me, like gave me so much jewels, things to do, course like next steps on just how to just like get my foot in the door. So I was started to cover men's sports at the time. I was covering um, NBA and stuff like that, NFL, and at the time I had an idea for a website, but I was coming from an angle of covering athletes who try to get in sports the unconventional way.
Mhm.
So focusing on guys who like get in the NBA through JUCO or through playing overseas or something like unconventional, quote unquote. And I wanted to cover women somehow, but then I like had a change of heart, and I was like, these women aren't coming in unconventional. This is their path. This is the way it's supposed to go.
Right.
So I didn't grow up playing sports. I didn't grow up. Well, no, I played sports. I didn't play basketball. I wasn't really into basketball growing up. I knew the stars, I knew the names, I knew the draft picks. My class in um, that class I took in high school, we had to follow the draft that year. We had to follow all the prospective draft picks that year up until they got drafted. And it just so happens that the year I graduated is the year that LeBron and Carmelo and D Wade got drafted. So
Of
it
course.
was a very sought after, like higher profile draft that year, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So, so anyway, long story short, um, I start to freelance write for this one website, this one woman. I met her on Twitter. Um, she allows me to write for her site, just whenever. Started doing men's sports, and then I started to watch the WNBA so I could learn more about basketball. Because remember, I didn't grow up playing, so I knew, but I was like, I want to be able to talk about basketball the way Stephen A. Smith does, and the way like real X's and O's. So I started watching WNBA a little bit. I remember going to a game that year. I said, let me go to a Liberty game. Tickets were dirt cheap back then. You know, it's not this is Hollywood shit you see now. So I go to the game. So I go to the game and they were playing the Lynx. This may have been Maya's first or second year. I think that may have been the year she won Rookie of the Year, MVP. It was like very early, like and I remember watching this woman play and I was like, who the fuck is that?
Oh man, we
I
miss
was
Maya.
mesmerized. I was like, this woman is like what am I watching? Like I was just like completely baffled but hypnotized, but like I'd never seen basketball played that way before. That day, um, her name is Morgan. Don't remember her last name, but she works I think for the Knicks now. She's up there now. She done moved her way on to the Upper East Side of the Knicks world, but she was
Good.
working, as account exec season ticket person at the time, and I signed up for season tickets for like the same day or the next day.
Nice. Nice.
So I was a season ticket holder for the remainder of the season.
Nice.
And, I went to the games as much as I could. Um, and the thing I think at the time with the season tickets, like if you didn't go to a game, like it rolled over. The ticket like rolled over to like the next game. So like I was able to like bring somebody with me like the next game because I had like two tickets
Mm-hmm.
instead of like one. So like I
Nice.
remember like I brought like my friend and her daughter. Her daughter's like 10 now. No, her daughter's like 12 now. But at the time, her daughter was like 2 years old, 3 years old, and she was like having the time of her life at this game. Um, but one thing they did for season ticket holders, they had a barbecue, and it was it was like a little cookout. I forgot exactly where it was, but they had a season ticket event, and players came and sat and mingled with ticket holders and everything. And at my table, it was Sugar Rogers, it
Yeah.
was Sade Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Kathy was at our table too, possibly, maybe, but definitely Sade Houston sat next to me,
Right.
and Sugar was like across the table or whatever. And just talking about like, their lives, upbringing, and everything. And just listening to Sugar's story about her life, I was like, how come no one knows about this?
Mm.
Like, she's interesting as fuck.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Very
then
much.
the more players I met or read about or learned of as I'm learning about them, I'm like, these women are fascinating. How come we don't know more about them? So that's when things kind of started to switch. And I still had this concept of a website. I was going to call it the Low Post. Fun fact.
Hey. Hey.
I was going to call it the Low Post, LAU, like play off my name, but there was already a website and a blog called the Low Post, LOWE, by a
Exactly.
guy who covers like I think he covers like
NBA.
NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, damn, I can't take his shit,
Yeah.
right? You
Exactly.
know? So and plus like the spelling of low, like I know it's low, but I don't want to pronounce it low and just butcher the whole shit. So I didn't know. So, like whatever, I didn't know what to do. So that's where the idea of Beyond the W the idea of focusing on women's basketball started. And I hadn't, as time went on, it started to morph. And I would like write about it on the website that I was writing for at the time. I keep forgetting it. I think it was it called Fanatics? I think that's the name of the website. It's not there anymore. She shut it down or whatever. I think it's called Fanatics or something like that. And I was writing for her. Um, and I was in this program. Bleacher Report had this like writers program, like way back. They don't have it anymore. But I would like try to write more stories about women's basketball. Um, but I remember sometimes it was hard to get through because they wanted me to write about, and it's a writers program, so I think they want you to just have an idea of exposure to writing all different types of sports, like
Yeah.
hindsight being 2020. But at the
Yeah.
time, I felt like they won't let me write about women's sports. So I was like, I'm just gonna start my own shit.
Exactly.
So
There you go.
the idea started to kind of come together. I still didn't have a name, and I went to NABJ in 2014. Yes. First time ever at NABJ. My homegirl told me I need to go. I have to go. You have to be there. If you're trying to get in media, you have to go. I'm like, all right, fine. It was in Boston that year. My oldest brother lives in Boston, so I was like, well, shit, I got somewhere to stay. So might as well. Took the bus up to Boston, stayed with my brother. Actually, stayed with his best friend who was out of town that week, so he gave me his space, his spot to stay at the whole time, and just took the train or cab or whatever to the hotel where NABJ was at. And that's where I met two people who, to this day, are part of Beyond the W story. That's where I met David Aldridge. And again, I approached him doing the 2 minute elevator pitch
Mm-hmm.
just to get his ID because I saw so many people talking to him. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, this guy must be royalty. Because, fun fact, fun fact. So when I would talk about the idea I have for Beyond the W, one of my friends always said, oh, you sound like you want to create inside the NBA or inside stuff, whatever, that Amar Rashad used to host.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I'm like, bet. So I'll go to NABJ and I'm like, oh shit, there goes Amar Rashad.
Oh wow.
No.
Bet. He's
No.
here. I get to talk to Amar Rashad.
No.
Oh,
I,
the irony.
I didn't grow up watching the NBA. Okay,
Fair. Fair.
so like I had like for some reason I had Amar Rashad's name in my head, and I always associated him with David's face. So I was like, oh, it's Amar Rashad. Bet.
Poor,
So
poor
when I
baby.
go, so
Poor
now
baby.
I'm waiting on the line to go talk to him, and everyone's like, I hear people saying David or hi David or David Aldridge, and I'm like, that's not Amar Rashad, is it? So I got closer to him and I saw his like name badge. It said David Aldridge, and I was like, oh, that's not. So now I'm defeated. I'm like, so the person that I wanted to meet and give him my whole idea, he's not here. So I get in the elevator and he's there. No, he's coming out the elevator, and I was sitting like in this like area of seating, and I'm like, well, he must know something because so many people was online to talk to him and like were revering him. So I'm like, he must know something. So I just walked up to him and I was like, excuse me, sir. And I was like, I introduced myself. I was like, I just want to just tell you really quick about my idea. And I just want to know, like, what do you think about it? And like, if anywhere I could improve. Again, the little 2-3 minute elevator pitch. David walked with me, found an empty, like, like in the big hotels, they have like little conference rooms, whatever, an empty conference room. They were setting it up for something else later on in the day. An hour and a half.
Mm.
He broke that shit down for me like a fraction. He let me see what the vision would be like. He let me see how big this shit is and how important it was. I had no idea what I like. I was also my little blog about women's sports here and there. He was like, "No, you need to make this happen, and here's why, and here's how." I always say Beyond the W would not exist if it wasn't for DA.
Mm.
And also, I met a beautiful, amazing woman by the name of Bianca Egalite, who literally is like my sister. Like me and her, like besties. Like to the point that people thought me and her were related that day. And they're like, "Oh, you guys are sisters or related?" We're like, "No, we just met each other yesterday." Cause
Nice.
we were locked in from day one. We were locked in. And I'll tell the story another time how me and her met.
Mm-hmm.
But um, talking to her, telling her about the idea, telling her and whatever. She's like, "Why don't you call it Beyond the W?" And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh
Light bulb.
shit!" I was
Light
like,
bulb.
That's it.
"Yo, forget light bulb. I'm talking about New York City Times Square lights came on, like, swing." I was
Mm.
like, "Beyond the W," and I was like, "Yo, I like that." And she was like, "Yeah." Like she said so. If you ever talk to Bianca, she's like the most casual, but just New York ass New Yorker. Like her accent is thick as butter, but she's just so chill with it. She just like, "What about Beyond the W?" And I'm just like, "Bruh," like, well,
Hey,
I didn't say bruh,
yo,
I said something else. Like,
you probably
yes.
you probably said, bro.
I was like, "Yo, this is it." And to this day, I always say, Beyond the W ever gets to a point where we make like thousands, millions of dollars, like she's getting the cut because it just. One thing about her though, she was so good with coming. Me, I'm horrible coming up with names, titles, like. But her, it just comes off the top of the dome like that. Shout outs to her, love her to pieces.
That's
Wow.
So,
wild.
Creative.
but yes, so that's what listening to Sugar Rogers and Sade Houston talk about their lives made me realize like these women's stories need to be told. It was Sugar because if you know Sugar's story, she had like a very uh difficult at times upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought process was like when you look at the NBA, NFL, especially when it comes to like players of color, the media eats that shit up. Right? They
Mm.
love
All
the
the trauma
struggle,
stories.
the trauma, the struggle. They made it out the mud stories. But I'm like, those boys had little sisters too. Those boys had big sisters that were in the house experiencing the same trauma, like trying to get through it too. Like, what about them? Like, who's gonna tell like that little sister or that mother or that aunt or that cousin that lives there? What about their story? You
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
Um, so there's that. And the more I interviewed players, the more they would just tell me so much amazing things. And the biggest takeaway that I think I've learned about women's sports in general, not just about how important the players' stories are and how special they are and how amazing they are and how multifaceted they are. This could serve as a piece of advice too, but like players' trust to me trumps everything.
Mm.
And
Right.
without the players' trust, there is no media's website. There is no Beyond the W. There is no anything. If the players don't trust you, and I know the two of you can attest,
Mm-hmm.
players know who to talk to, and players know who to talk to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You could tell when the media trained side of them comes out and when it doesn't.
Mm.
And for
That.
some people they're just media trained across the board. Like there's some players that I may not get that real like let your hair down moment with them because they're just kind of like very polished across the board. But there's some that you can tell the difference in how they talk to you versus how they talk to, especially in the last 10 years. Now it's different because so many eyes are on women's sports. But
Mm-hmm.
especially those 10 years where like it's starting to grow. So now some websites and outlets that don't normally cover the W are now popping up.
Mm-hmm.
So the players are like, oh, okay, well, like, yeah, we'll talk to this major platform, this multi-million dollar following platform, whatever, but we're going to let our hair down with this smaller person, this smaller outlet, this independent outlet, this, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
look how players talk to Ari during her interviews versus, you know, somebody that works for like CBS or NBC or you know what I'm saying? Not saying that, and we know people that of our people that work for them outlets. I'm not talking about our people
Right.
because
Mm-hmm.
our people have been doing it from the mud and they work their way to those bigger platforms. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking
Mm.
about the people that's their assignment for the day.
That just came in.
Yeah,
That just popped in out of nowhere.
Exactly.
Right, right. And there are some that probably wanted to cover women's sports for a long time and they finally got their chance to. But then there's some that you could tell like I remember what seats were empty
Hmm.
religiously when I was covering the Liberty. I remember. And a lot of those seats that were empty religiously were big platforms
Hmm.
until a certain player came to town or until the Liberty made the playoffs. And
Hmm.
then they show up.
Hmm.
And it's like, cool. But I also saw the dynamic of how the players talk to them and how they would talk to how they would talk to Howard, how they would talk to, you know what I'm saying, like other smaller outlets or big outlets that came religiously. I
Yeah.
see the difference.
Right.
So I think that especially now, the way how social media and media just has evolved, and unfortunately, it's not always great. You know, like I had a conversation with a family member just about this the other day, and he was telling me about like why a very popular um, political pundit is as popular as they are is because the shock value and because controversy is what sells. And I tried to tell him like I can't do that here because without no players there is no beyond the W. Like there is none. Like we could write stories and then we're covering them, but without the interaction and the trust of them to create that kind of content, there is nothing. And there's conversations I've had with players that I've never talked about.
I see what you mean.
You know what I
Mm.
mean? I remember
I
one
mean, I
time,
mean, I mean, you can't talk about it because again, it goes back to the trust.
right?
Exactly.
I had one player that me and her spent time together, like she was coming into town, and she put out like a tweet, and I was like, oh hey, like I'll meet up with you, like I'll show you where to go, how to get around, and we hung out 2 times when she came to New York, and I could have put that up on social media. I did it. I probably may have put like a little something on my private page that you guys see, but everybody else ain't gonna see. But on Beyond the W's page, I didn't do that. And during those times that me and her hung out, like we talked a lot about different things. She told me like her perspective about different things with certain players and certain things going on, like certain like player involved things going on. Not she wasn't talking about players like in a bad way, but it's like her opinion on like certain things like like just a perspective of a player on like league happenings or just whatever. To this day, I'm tight lipped because that's what trust is built. Like one of my biggest, obviously, I think most people in media, their biggest inspirations is like Oprah Winfrey. Forget Oprah Winfrey. Let's take Robin Roberts.
Mm.
Why do people go to Robin Roberts and they don't go anybody else? Because there's a
Exactly.
trust there.
Right.
Hmm.
There's a
Very
trust
much
there
so.
with Oprah Winfrey. Like Michelle Obama ain't gonna talk to like fucking I don't know. I'm not gonna name names because I don't want to like throw dirt on other people in media because media is hard to do. But there's a reason why she'll go to like an Oprah because the trust is there. You know what I mean? So that's how
Yeah.
I want to, and I still maintain that approach. I don't care if we put together an interview and it only gets 100 views or 100 reads. The 100 people that were meant to read it and see it and enjoy it read it, watched it, enjoyed it. Of course, it would be great to go viral or have millions of views and it blows up. It'll be great. But I want to make sure we're all prepared for what comes with that
Yeah.
and the
Ex-
expectation to keep that up. And number two, I don't want to do it at the cost of severing a relationship with a player because you leave a bad taste in one player's mouth, it's going to turn to two, it's going to turn to three, it's going to turn to 10.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And right now, with a league that's growing so rapidly, there's so many people coming in that are quote unquote media or whatever that we don't know, and we don't know what their motives are and where they're coming in or where they're coming from. Players have to feel protected.
Very
And
much
I'm all about protecting them. And if that means I do a full interview with them, but let's say they don't want to put it out because that's something I may have to just like think about. But I would definitely lean on the side of like protecting them. And you know what I mean? I just feel like right now,
so. Right.
especially a lot of players in the league that are women of color, they're in a very vulnerable place right now for um, reasons well beyond their control.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could do my part, especially as another black woman or woman of color, to protect them in any way, shape, or form, I'm gonna do that.
Absolutely.
So, because there is no W media without the players and their stories and their talent, there is none.
Agreed.
True.
So,
Absolutely. Well said.
um, thank you. You guys have some gems too. So, speaking of gems, I'm gonna try to wind it down because we're hitting the 2 hour mark and
Hmm.
it's about to be it's 10:23. Um, so a few more questions and then we'll wrap it up. So, speaking of gems, what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is trying to find their way into covering women's sports? What's one advice that you would give them? It could be a writer, it could be a photographer, it could be anybody. What's one piece of advice that you would give them?
That's a good one. Um, I think for me, it's the same kind of advice that I give to myself all the time, and that is keep the same energy that you keep with the men. You know
Mm-hmm.
that these are world class athletes. Even more world class people. They're just as amazing as their male counterparts. Don't come into this space using it as a stepping stone to something bigger,
Mm-hmm.
or you're like, oh, I'm just here so I don't get fined. Like, no, like really come in with passion and dedication and love for them, for what they're doing, for the space that you're in, and honor it. Look, especially for people like Akeem and myself, like as kind of visitors in the home, like as much as we have our bona fides, like we still aren't women in this space. So there still needs to be a level of care on top of just the attention, the energy, the passion of what you do. So I would just tell them, yeah, as treat you covering, Benai Delaney or Stewie or JJ like you would be covering Luca or LeBron or Kyrie or something. They're just as bomb. They're just as dope at what they do. And if you come in with that positive energy and that care for your craft, like they'll probably give you more because of what you say, because of
Mm-hmm.
how open the players are when they trust you, when they recognize what you're doing. And again, for any male writers, reporters, anyone that are in this space, like just honor the space that you're in as a visitor. Like I always kind of think of like how Eminem treats the craft of hip hop. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, he's arguably the goat, but he knows it's a platform that was created by black and brown people. So he honors it by putting in the work and respecting the people that came before it and knowing the history of it. So I would just kind of take that same approach for what we're doing.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think a really good example, if one is looking to kind of model themselves after anybody, is Megan Hall. I mean, Megan Hall is
Mm-hmm.
someone who I have tremendous respect for. I mean, it was a situation where a few years ago, I mean, you know, we didn't even know who Megan Hall was, but it's become a situation where she gets an opportunity at USA Today at For the Win, to cover women's sports, cover the WNBA, particularly cover the Atlanta Dream, and the respect and admiration that she has received in the women's sports space has been absolutely incredible. Like, if anybody, and this is why I shouted her out when I did my yearly, media shout outs, piece, on Beyond the W, some weeks ago. So, definitely got to give her her flowers, absolutely. But as far as any piece of advice, yeah, definitely for sure what Lamar said, because there definitely is for any male who is looking to cover women's sports. I mean, there definitely is that added layer of trust and that added layer of credibility, that one, I think, definitely has to establish, because I mean, it's one of those situations where we've seen stories across the country of men being involved in women's sports, and it's one of those situations where we've seen male journalists that have kind of you know use their kind of tried to use the platform of being and somehow involved as a male journalist in women's sports, and they've kind of used it to somewhat their own illicit means. So it's been unfortunate in that area. So it is one of those situations where if you are a man who's looking to cover women's sports, definitely for sure, like you said, certainly use it, but don't abuse it. Absolutely, I
Mm.
think that's the main thing to, one of the main things to think about. But also something else too. If one is looking to, be involved in women's sports, I feel like that there's, no better time than now. I mean, regardless of where one may very well be. I mean, if one is, in college, and I say this because I'm a Georgia State University alum. I'm a product of the student newspaper there, the Signal,
Mm.
and one of the things that I did there while I was there was I was going hard in the paint covering their women's sports. I was going hard covering volleyball. I was going hard covering women's basketball. I was going all in covering softball, all in covering beach volleyball. So really and truly, there's no better time than now. I mean, one could do it locally, one could do it at their, if they're at a university, whether it's as a writer or whether it's as a photographer.
Mm.
One could, in any way that one is involved, by all means, definitely try to get involved in any way, shape, or form. Like, and somebody else as well who I had the opportunity to meet at All Star is Aya Abdeen. Somebody else as well who I definitely have a lot of admiration for and a lot
Mm.
of respect for. She is another somebody else as well who I think is really a great blueprint to kind of model oneself after for anybody who is looking to get involved in women's sports, especially at the college level, because she's doing big things at Arizona State, and plus she's had the opportunity to work alongside Howard Megdal at the Next and everything. So yeah, definitely got to give a shout out to her. But absolutely, if one is looking to get involved and wanting to work in women's sports, by all means, it could be locally, it could be like I said at your college, local, or university. There's so many avenues, and with where women's sports is now, there's only going to be more avenues. So if one has that passion and one has that drive, by all means, find a way to get involved.
Hey, real quick before you go low, in that same vein, look, it doesn't matter when you start. Shout out to Pepper.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
She about to have more experience than
Yeah,
all of us, man.
Huh. Talk about it.
legit.
She's about to be a
So look,
10-year vet in
at
early
20,
college years,
Right.
smoking all of us.
wild.
Exactly.
She's so talented. I basically wanted to add on to what you guys said. What I would say to, in addition, is to pace yourself, but be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, women's sports is a big world, and unlike many other industries, every aspect of society, the good, bad, and the ugly, has a direct impact on women's sports. So sometimes you'll find yourself fighting or feeling, sometimes as women's sports as a whole is fighting against like societal constructs that have been here from the very beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the pace yourself comes in. It's like, it's okay. Like, everything that you're doing is just adding a tiny piece to the puzzle, the bigger picture, like the puzzle that's part of the bigger picture. But be consistent. I would say that was something that I didn't do, was be consistent, and I allowed my, uh, you know, insecurities in a way and frustrations on myself, not being kind to myself to cause me to not be consistent in certain years where I think it would have mattered. Um, but be as consistent as you can. And if you have a moment where you may fall off the horse because life be life and life is undefeated, life will always be undefeated.
Mm.
You can pick up where you left off and you can keep going. And you can also, don't be afraid to change and don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. Um, give yourself time to see if something works, but it's okay to like switch things up a little bit if you have to, or to add on to your arsenal because it only makes you just more versatile if you do. You don't have to be some kind of monolithic kind of version of somebody in media or influencer or whatever. You can be whatever you want to be as long as you are true to covering women's sports or women's basketball, true to yourself. That's all that matters. Um,
Amen.
and I will also say, absolutely, absolutely find or build a tribe. You're gonna need it. You're gonna need people who know you and who can advocate for you and who can just listen to you because I guarantee, and I'm sure you guys have felt this, covering being in sports, and specifically covering women's sports, is such a unique experience that sometimes nobody understands what you're talking about. No one understands what you're going through, but the
Mm-hmm.
people that are in the space with you.
Mm. True.
I have my friends, like my personal friends, my childhood friends, my girls, my personal tribe, who sometimes, and I love them, and I know their heart is in the right place, but there are days where I'm like, they don't get it. And it's not because they don't want to. It's just they genuinely like they're not in media, they're not in sports, they're not in whatever.
Mm.
However, one of those women said something to me. When did she say this? This was probably 20. When did she get? Maybe 2021, 22. I want to say 2022. She said this to me. It was her engagement party,
Mm.
and it was my first time meeting her fiance. Some familiar faces that I met, like her, her other friends that I met before are there. So it's new faces. We're all bonding. It's at this beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn. Like I'm vibing, everything like that. I'm talking to her like just like excited, like this guy seems like an amazing guy. I'm like, how'd you guys meet? Whatever. We're catching up. And then in the middle of me talking, she was like, all right, cut all the shit. What's going on beyond the W? And I'm like, what? What are we talking about? And I'm like, girl, this is your engagement party. She was like, I know, but what's going on beyond the W? What are you doing? What are we doing?
Wow.
And I'm just like, and then mind you, it was my best friend and Keith, my husband, sitting next to me. And they're all looking at me like, well, what about it? What's going on? And I'm like, how does it turn to me at your engagement party? She said something
That's
to me that
wild.
stuck. She said something to me that sticks to me to this day. She was like, don't you find it interesting that after all these years, no one still has created anything like Beyond the W? She's like, do you think that's like by accident?
Mm.
Mm.
And I was just like, hmm. And she was like, God is literally holding it for you while you just figure yourself out. Like, did you ever think about that?
Mm.
Gagged, okay? So
About.
I say all that to say, find yourself a tribe of people. Yes, your friends and your family will be there for you. God willing, you have a supportive network of people in your personal life. But if you could find a tribe of people, it don't gotta be a big tribe. When I say a tribe, I'm not literally talking about like a village's worth of tribe. It could just be two people. It could be one person. It could be three people. Like it don't necessarily have to be a mentor. It could be just people, that have been in it for a long time. Issa Rae, I remember one time in the interview, she said that, she started with people that were on her level and like,
Mm.
they were all at the same level playing field and they all kind of like elevate each other as they, one person moves up and they elevate each other as they go along. Like just find people that will be able to support you and pour into you and hear you while you're on this journey to it because it gets very it gets challenging. It's media, it's sports, it's you know finance, it's a philanthropy, whatever aspect of sports that you're trying to be in. It's hard, especially media, and we don't know what media is going to look like, you know, in the next couple of years because of just the way that industry is going, the way that just our nation is the direction our nation seems to be heading into is very scary. So you have to lean on each other as much as possible. Women's sports is in a great place and it's only going to take off from here, God willing.
Mm.
So just find yourself a tribe and be kind to yourself, but most importantly, be consistent. That's what you're gonna need.
Amen.
So,
Facts.
um, with that being said, I think I'm gonna cut this off at 2:30. It's 2:15 right now, so 2:30. I'm gonna cut it off.
Mm.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So as we wind down, so y'all can go to bed and I can go to bed. So as we wind down, what would you guys like to see for Beyond the W in year 10?
Mm.
Like, what's one thing you want us to like try to do?
That's a good question. I mean, like, that's the thing. I mean, like we've done, like I said, we've done so much. I mean, over these 10 years and like you said, I mean, like 10 years can go by really, really fast. But
Mm-hmm.
but it's I think that the if anything, I mean, like, I think that one of the things that we just need to do is kind of, like you said, um, just look at what it was that we've done and just really continue to build upon it. Continue to kind of go into like what it was that we have done in the past, and like I said, continue to grow on it, continue to tell those stories, continue to you know continue to bring those stories maybe about players that maybe folks don't necessarily know about, continue to highlight what so many of these multi-talented women are doing, of course, not just on the court but also off the court as well. Because one thing that I think that we can really do is, like you were saying earlier, Lo, capitalize on this boom period that women's sports, that the WNBA is currently experiencing. So being able to continue to to highlight those stories that that maybe folks aren't necessarily always always so privy to. So I think that that is definitely something that as we continue to grow, um, that is something that I feel like is really going to be key. And then on top of everything else, also being able to continue to to do those collaborative pieces. Like I think it's one of those situations where perhaps we may end up doing something more collaborative in the future, maybe with other websites, with other media outlets, with so things like that. So I definitely see that as certainly the future, and also continuing to kind of just be more multidimensional, as we've definitely taken steps to do. So I feel like that there's definitely, I just feel like there's so much absolutely that we can do. I'm just glad that at the very least, like I said, that we're pacing ourselves and not putting too much pressure on ourselves to kind of, do it in such a period of time. Because the thing about it is we're giving ourselves credit. We're giving ourselves our flowers, and definitely you, Lamar, and definitely you, Lo, definitely should give yourselves credit and flowers for everything that you have done. I mean, because you've done a lot. So yeah, that's definitely, certainly what I've seen and what I want to continue to see, and I think it's going to happen.
Thank you.
What I'm excited about for Beyond the W in year 10 is just the chance to continue doing excellent work and unique work in this space of change. Like there's so
Mhm.
much growth happening with women's sports, and like I kind of said before, we will be there. We should be there, and we should plant our flag and leverage our experience into using this growth moment to do the things that we do, chase the unique stories that we chase, and put it in front of all these new eyeballs. Um, I think going back to conversations that we've had and what you said about the legends, I think there's two unique paths that we could go on in terms of new stories. You know, obviously we can cover stuff on the day to day with the current players, but I think making a push to cover the legends a lot more and get those oral histories or videos or whatever it is with some of these players that have been there and giving them some shine, we could help these newbies that are coming into the league. Like, hey, you should know about
Right.
so and so that's a multi-time MVP or a multiple-time All-Star or did XYZ. So I think we could use our unique angles of coverage to be stewards of some of that history being put in front of the new eyeballs that are coming around. And in that same vein, we could get some history on the future. We can get some history out of the future as well, whether we maybe delve into talking to some college players. Everyone in college now has grown up with the league here. So, if it's us finding a way to talk to a Juju or a Page, or Tina Pow Pow in South Carolina, or any player,
Hmm.
that may be W adjacent, or just someone that is close to our network, but knows that hey, they've grown up watching these players. Like I love seeing young folks give that reverence to the players that came before. So, using our platform to hit both sides of the spectrum, honoring the legends, talking to the future as they give their reverence, like, and keeping those stories alive. Um, I think there's a unique opportunity for us to get some good stuff out there.
I agree. I love those ideas. I'm excited for all those things as well. I think what I'm excited about going into year 10 and beyond is almost like starting over. And not in the sense of like literally starting the website over, but just like starting over. Like the women's basketball landscape is so different than what it was when I first started. And I'm excited, like I'm embracing it now versus like rebelling. Um, the change and learning about these players, and now more than ever we're seeing now more than ever just how savvy of businesswomen these players are, especially coming out of college with NIL deals and the different endorsements.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of players are coming in with a following already. You got players like Flau J coming out of LSU with a thriving, amazing music career. You know what I mean? Like something that you saw like elements of it, you saw little pieces of it with like Essence and different things like that. But like seeing it, like that's the evolution of Essence Carson is her,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's just excited to see the next generation of players, um, and not just see like how far they're going to go, but just kind of looking to see the players that laid the foundation for them to be that. You know what I'm saying? Like Angel Reese, we see her, right? We see her out here, red carpets, endorsements, podcasts, whatever like that. Lisa Leslie absolutely put down the framework for her to do that. A Skylar Diggins put down the framework for her to do that. A Candace Parker put down the framework for her to now be able to soar the way she is. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Caitlyn. Same thing with Juju coming in and Paige coming in and Cameron Brink and you know what I'm saying? Like so many other players. So I'm excited just to kind of like relearn the space in a good way and just like not just be exposed to and meet and build relationships with the younger girls, but also capitalize on the relationships that we've built with like veterans and with now retired players. Um, when we talk about retired players, we're not talking about players that started the league anymore. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
these are players that literally were just playing 2 years ago, three. Like Sydney Carter is a player that I would love to have on the pod because she's one of my favorite people in the times that I've interacted with her, and she's a legend. She's a OG that now has kind of you know created a whole new different life and exposure for herself as not just a coach, but the flyest coach period out here. Like Kim Mulkey, who
Right.
sorry Kim Mulkey, I know you're the OG out here, but you like Sydney is on your coattails. You know what I mean? So
Facts.
She's
like
like crazy.
Yeah.
um she just dropped this amazing line to in a collaboration with a brand too that I just cannot wait to like talk to her about. Um so just like with that being said, right? So one way I'm approaching the pod different than when Princess and I had it. And before I even continue, I just want to make sure I shout out Princess because this podcast wouldn't be here without Princess. Princess Streeter, um, love you to pieces. This podcast was your idea, your brainchild. You wanted me to do it with you. We did it. We made amazing connections. We made amazing content. And at first, I was butthurt. What she was like, she didn't want to really kind of focus on media anymore more and wanted to like lean into like front office stuff. So that's why really the podcast didn't really come back. It wasn't necessarily because it wasn't anything with us. It was her. It wasn't just her.
Her
I'll say, I
aspirations.
was going, yeah, it was me and going through whatever I was going through and trying to figure out myself, coupled with her aspirations and her lane changing too. It was like a weirdest time. So I want to make sure I shout her out. So with that being said, now that I'm relaunching this pod solo, um, every season I wanna I wanna do seasons, crazy, and I also want to do a different theme every season. And the theme I want it to kind of I'm taking it from like kind of whatever I'm going through at the time and like where my mind is at the time, and I want to invite guests on that kind of I see are examples of or have gone through or experiencing things related to that theme. So, sneak peek. Um, season one's theme is basically reinvention, like rebirth, reinvention, because that's what the season that I think I am with Beyond the W, but also personally, right? Um, I've been through a lot the last since moving here, the last 5 years. I've been through so much in my 30s. So going into 40 next year, which is crazy.
Mm.
Um, I feel like I'm finally off the roller coaster. And I'm like, who am I now that I'm off the roller coaster? Because I'm not who I was when I got on. And I low key don't want to be her anymore. Like, not that she was bad, but you know what I mean? Like, life just changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about so many players that have gone through different phases of reinventing, whether it's their actual like skill set on the court, but also off the court life, right? Like their business dealings, their personal life. Like, so I have a list of guests that I want to have that are either players or friends, colleagues, media members. I'm also too going to expand outside of just this little nugget of the basketball community. So I want to open it up to other people and other in sports, other women's sports, because I do feel like these people have so much to share. There's so many similarities, but the differences you can learn from. So I'm really excited because the list of guests that I have, and I'm gonna tell y'all off air when I stop recording, I'm gonna tell y'all who I have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm really excited to talk. I already like sent out the SOS to two people, like the little tester feeler. One of them is absolutely down. He's one of our favorite people. I'm not gonna say who he is, but y'all love him just y'all listening love him just as much as I do if you know who he is. And I sent it to somebody else who's also been like someone I've been admiring from afar. And he is like he will love to, just a matter of scheduling and everything, because this person is the hardest working person I know right now in media. And if I could get him, it's gonna be a special treat for me. It's gonna be a special treat, and I know it's gonna be a special treat for you guys. So I'm really excited to just relearn some power from that way, and also, like I said, learning about the players and just like re-immersing myself. And my goal, it was my goal this year. But baby, we got three new teams. I'm traveling. I'm getting on a plane somewhere. Okay,
Let's
I'm going to Golden
go.
State.
Let's go.
I'm going to Toronto. I'm going to Portland. These are all cities that I always want to go to San Francisco. There's no reason why I haven't been to Toronto yet. I have a ton of family in Montreal. There's no reason why I haven't been to Toronto yet. And I've always want to go to Portland. So, um, and I have a tradition that I try to keep of going to see the inaugural game in a new like city. So I was able to do the first one I did was the Dallas Wings when they moved from Tulsa to Dallas. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was able to go when the Aces moved from San Antonio to Vegas. So I'm planning. I already looked at flights to try to get to San Francisco for the Valkyries, and then next year I'm gonna figure out because Portland, no 2026 is Portland and Toronto.
Oh.
So what I'm hoping is like, can y'all play each other the same weekend so I could just do like a connecting flight situation? I don't gotta take too much time off of work. It might get crazy. So and y'all are right there. So it shouldn't be that expensive of a flight. But um,
Right.
I'm excited, and then I'm obviously excited to see what other cities, Tennessee, that they bring
Phil-
a team to, because ain't no reason why there's not a team in Nashville yet. But anyway, I digress. So, with that being said, we've been talking more than 2 hours and 30 minutes, by the way. But we've been recording for 2 hours and 30 minutes. Lamar looks exhausted. He's
We've been
on
talking.
about
We've been talking for 10 years. What you mean?
he no you he's on by a thread. This man's eyes are getting glossy. He's ready for
Wow.
bed. He's
Thank God this is gonna be audio, right?
I'm weak.
I
So it's gonna be audio.
I was like, should I do a little clip for social media? You know how the kids do it nowadays.
Yeah.
They love their mic and they sit on their comfy couches,
Uh huh.
sit in Indian style, talking in the mic. I can't even sit Indian style, so I'm not doing it.
I'm
But
surprised I can still do it at 34 years old.
uh, okay, who's stretching like that? Not me. Um, but with that being said, you guys, I'm excited for this season coming up. Excited to watch Unrivaled coming up next
Mm-hmm.
month, like right around the corner. Continuing to watch this amazing NCAA season. Hannah Hidalgo, crazy. She's crazy.
Shout out to Jersey.
She's
Wow.
crazy. That girl, and I say crazy in a good way. She's insane. Okay. Um, so I'm excited to continue to watch her and all the other players playing in NCAA right now and keeping up with our favorite players and media and family. So, with that being said, shout outs to you too. I love you guys dearly. Um, he's in the other room, but shout outs to my hubby who has helped Beyond the W so much. Ran on social media for like a strong year, 2 years.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Shout outs to him, who is the smartest sports person I know. Like he knows everything. He is a walking encyclopedia. He's a walking Google search when it comes to basketball, anything. So he is so supportive and my backbone. Um, Shout outs to everybody who's helped me along the way. Shout outs to my tribe who um, continue to like encourage me, make time for me, as busy as they are. and um, and shout outs to all the people I've met after, like the newer voices and the newer faces that I've met through Twitter or at games or on social media that I'm like, yo, like they're doing amazing work. Like I cannot wait to work with them and continue to build relationships with them. So, um, I don't have any wine or any liquor. I got water because it's a Sunday night and I got to work in the morning. But this will drop on a Wednesday. So cheers to 10 years.
Cheers, cheers.
Um, like I said, I shouted you guys out. Shouted my husband. Shouted my friends and my family. But God gave me this vision, and this vision has kept me up at night plenty of times because I know it's from Him, and I'm grateful that He trusted me with it, and I'm grateful that He still trusts me with it somehow. I don't know how, but somehow He still does. So thank God for Beyond the W, and yeah, we're going to do the damn thing.
Let's
And we're gonna
go.
make some money. We're gonna
Let's
find a way
go.
to make some money.
Sounds like a plan.
Y'all got
I'm
money to
ready.
spend now. I don't want to hear it.
Sounds like a plan.
Y'all got money to spend now.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, just give us a little something out of that. Just give us a little something. We don't need much. It's a little something. We're coming for it. But yeah, the next episode, the first official episode of the W Pod will be dropping very soon, sometime really soon in January, God willing. Actually, let me not even put a date out there because if things don't happen the way they're going to happen, okay. But
Coming soon.
so the first episode of the new season of the W Pod is coming very, very, very soon. So be on the lookout on all your DSPs. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon.
Peace.
Absolutely.